doesn't have anything on him, right?
No,
Jewelry.
Conor McGregor, just hearing the name sparks visions of glory, violence, and unshakable arrogance. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a global spectacle. The man who knocked out opponents in seconds, conquered 2 UFC weight classes, and even stepped into the boxing ring to pocket a jaw-dropping $100 million in a single night. He wasn't just the UFC's golden goose, he was the entire empire's crown jewel. But in recent years, McGregor's shine has turned to scandal. From lawsuits and late-night brawls to the shocking 2024 ruling that ordered him to pay $250,000 in damages for an alleged assault, his name now drips with controversy. The fighter who once stood as an untouchable legend is now cast as a courtroom defendant and a cautionary tale in the tabloids. How did a man worshipped for his ferocity become a walking symbol of self-destruction? Let's rewind the clock. Before the millions, before the belts, before the scandals, there was just a kid in Dublin, a working-class plumber by day, a relentless dreamer by night. No fame, no privilege, just bruised knuckles and burning ambition. McGregor's dream wasn't just to fight, it was to carve his name into the very bones of the UFC. And then came his legendary debut, 67 seconds of pure chaos. He flattened his opponent so fast it looked like destiny itself had stepped into the octagon. From that night forward, McGregor wasn't just a fighter, he was a storm. With fists of steel, a mouth that could sell out arenas, and an ego larger than life, he became a phenomenon. But here's the twist. The same ego that built him into a superstar would later drag him down into the abyss. To really grasp McGregor's arrogance, the disdain he threw at the world like a weapon, you need to go back to April 6, 2013. An unknown name stepped into the cage, and in just 67 seconds, Marcus Brimage was left on the floor. That wasn't just a win, it was a declaration of war. With his head held high, McGregor barked into the mic words that weren't gratitude, but a calculated warning to the entire division. "I'm not just here to win, I'm here to make the whole world pay me what I'm worth." That wasn't confidence, that was a challenge to the system itself, and the wild part, he backed it up. Experts called his technique flawless, the media worshipped his ferocity, and fans around the world treated him like a living prophecy. But glory is a dangerous drug, and McGregor overdosed on his own legend. The man who once predicted the punch that flattened Jose Aldo never saw his downfall coming. A crushing submission, a humiliating reminder that even kings bleed. McGregor had built an illusion so thick that even he believed it, that he could never lose, never fall. But kings don't fall by swords. They fall because they start believing they're untouchable. His confidence turned into arrogance, his bravado into open contempt. He didn't just beat opponents, he mocked them, ridiculed them, acted like they should be honored just to share the cage with him. At first, fans ate it up, mistaking arrogance for aura, but the higher McGregor climbed, the clearer it became. He wasn't just fighting, he was sneering at the entire world. And the cracks started showing in 2014 during his clash with Dustin Poirier. September 27th, UFC 178, a night etched in history. Poirier, a hungry young warrior with everything to prove, was eager to show his worth. But to McGregor, he was nothing more than a loudmouth, a yapping country bumpkin. That wasn't just trash talk. It was a declaration of dominance. McGregor's way of saying, "I'm in a league so far above this guy, he doesn't even deserve to breathe the same octagon air as me." And just like that, Dustin Poirier was laid out cold, and McGregor strutted off like a king claiming his throne. His empire was expanding, his legend growing, but the fireworks had only just begun. Because then came December 12th, the night that shook the entire UFC forever. In just 13 seconds, McGregor delivered a single punch that shattered Jose Aldo's 7-year undefeated reign. 7 years of dominance, wiped out in less than half a minute. One lightning strike, one cold-blooded knockout, and the champion who once terrified every opponent suddenly crumbled under the spotlight. The cheers weren't for Aldo, they were for McGregor, the man who had just rewritten UFC history with his fists. From that moment forward, McGregor wasn't just a fighter, he was a showman, a walking theater of arrogance. Every fight became a stage where his cocky swagger, his over-the-top confidence, and his "I don't care" attitude stole the spotlight. But eventually that stage met its match. Enter Nate Diaz, a fighter who didn't need scripted trash talk, who matched McGregor's bravado with raw, unfiltered attitude of his own. March 2016, one of the most iconic UFC clashes ever. Not just in the cage, but in the war of words. McGregor came in riding high on his myth of invincibility, but Diaz had other plans. Round 2, chaos exploded. Diaz hammered him with a storm of punches, each one cracking through the illusion of the untouchable king. And then, the choke. A brutal submission that forced the unthinkable. McGregor tapped out. The same man who once mocked others for breaking now found himself begging for mercy. That image, Conor McGregor, the loudest man in the UFC, surrendering in a chokehold, was burned into history. And that was the turning point. After his first true fall, McGregor never really got back up. The cold, calculated champion began to unravel, slowly morphing into a celebrity who thrived on chaos and scandal instead of skill. By 2019, the headlines weren't about his victories anymore. They were about his shocking behavior. The infamous bar incident, McGregor throwing a punch at an elderly man simply because the man refused a sip of his whiskey brand. That wasn't the reaction of a fighter, it was the desperate outburst of someone addicted to control. Then, less than a month later, Miami, a fan politely asked for a photo, and McGregor's response? He grabbed the man's phone, smashed it on the ground, and strutted away as if rules no longer applied to him. And it didn't stop there. Outside the cage, McGregor's darkest shadows began to surface. Repeated allegations of sexual assault in Dublin. One accusation could have been doubt, but 2, 3 more? That was no longer whispers. It was a glaring storm cloud hanging over his empire. Each time the media pressed him, he either clammed up or responded with smug mockery, fueling the suspicion instead of calming it. The truth became clear. McGregor's deadliest opponent wasn't Aldo Diaz or Khabib. It was his own ego. Fame, fortune, and unchecked arrogance had corroded the very core of his empire. After scandal, there was only one way left to claw back his reputation: a comeback fight. And so, the UFC gave him the stage. Enter Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone, a veteran fighter already past his prime. The setup was obvious: a tailor-made return for the Notorious one. And sure enough, UFC 246 delivered the spectacle. McGregor destroyed Cerrone in just 40 seconds. A barrage of knees, a thunderous knockout, and once again, the king was back under the spotlight, or so it seemed. For a brief moment, it looked like McGregor had done it again. The knockout over Cowboy Cerrone had the crowd roaring, the headlines buzzing, and the UFC scrambling to crown their golden goose once more. 40 seconds of fury, and suddenly the Notorious was back. But here's the truth. It was smoke and mirrors, because while McGregor's fists still carried power, the cracks in his empire were widening fast. Behind the scenes, scandal stalked his every move. His return didn't silence the whispers, it only made them louder. Every press conference, every interview, fans weren't asking about his comeback, they were asking about his courtroom battles, his late-night brawls, his string of ugly allegations, and McGregor, instead of humility, he doubled down with that same mocking smirk, as if the world's questions were beneath him. But fate had more punishment lined up. Enter Khabib Nurmagomedov, the undefeated monster who represented everything McGregor wasn't: discipline, control, respect. Their clash at UFC 229 was hyped as the fight of the decade, but when the cage door shut, McGregor wasn't the predator anymore, he was the prey. For 4 brutal rounds, Khabib mauled him, dragging the loudmouth king into a world he couldn't escape. And when the choke came, it wasn't just McGregor tapping out, it was the myth of his invincibility being ripped apart in front of millions. The post-fight brawl that erupted only cemented his fall from grace, McGregor leaping into chaos while Khabib's camp stormed the cage. Instead of glory, it was disgrace on a global stage. And outside the octagon, McGregor's spiral only deepened. Cameras caught him in wild late-night outbursts, smashing a fan's phone in Miami, throwing a dolly through a UFC bus window, injuring fighters inside. That wasn't showmanship anymore. That was a man losing control. Each act added another stain to his legacy, another reason for critics to say, the king has lost his crown. By 2020, the pandemic kept the world locked inside, but McGregor's controversies found a way to leak out. Drunken pub brawls in Dublin, disturbing assault allegations piling up, court appearances that painted him more like a criminal than a champion. His reputation, once untouchable, was now a global punchline. But here's the kicker, McGregor still chased the spotlight. He couldn't live without it. In 2021, the UFC hyped up his trilogy with Dustin Poirier as the grand redemption story, a chance for McGregor to silence the doubters and reclaim his throne. Instead, disaster. Round 1, McGregor looked sharp, vicious even, throwing kicks with that old fire. But then came the moment burned into history. He stepped back and his legs snapped. In front of the world, the Notorious king was left sitting on the canvas, screaming in agony, powerless as Poirier walked away victorious. That wasn't just a loss, it was humiliation, the ultimate reminder that time spares no one. The UFC's once invincible poster boy now sat broken, not by an opponent's punch, but by his own body betraying him. And yet, even lying on the ground, McGregor couldn't resist trash talk, yelling insults while medics tended to him. The arrogance was still there, but the dominance was gone. From there, his public image nosedived further. More accusations, more bar fights, more scandals with women making headlines. McGregor had become less of a fighter and more of a circus act. What once made him magnetic, his cocky charm, his sharp tongue, his ruthless confidence, now looked like desperation, the last gasps of a man addicted to fame. Because here's the truth, McGregor wasn't fighting opponents anymore. He was fighting his own decline, his own demons, his own collapsing empire. And with every scandal, every courtroom drama, every humiliating loss, the question grew louder. Was this the end of Conor McGregor? That victory was supposed to be McGregor's proclamation, his way of saying, "I'm still here and I'm still dangerous." But the celebration didn't last long. Just days later, in a move that shocked fans yet again, McGregor suddenly announced his retirement, for the third time. Once more, he vanished from the spotlight, leaving the UFC scrambling and fans wondering if the Notorious King was gone for good. But outside the cage, his life was just as chaotic, his marriage plagued by rumors, his old scandals crawling back into the headlines. McGregor's name wasn't echoing for victories anymore, it was splashed across tabloids for all the wrong reasons. Then came the twist no one expected. Out of nowhere, McGregor made his return to face Dustin Poirier, the very man he had humiliated back in 2014. This was supposed to be his redemption, his final stamp of dominance. The bell rang, and both men went at each other with nothing held back. McGregor still had the speed, the technique, the sharp strikes that made fans believe, and for a moment, Poirier even backed up under the assault. But then it happened, one of the most shocking moments in UFC history. As McGregor stepped back, his legs snapped right in front of millions watching worldwide. The crowd gasped, the arena fell silent, and Poirier was declared the winner by doctor stoppage. McGregor, once the ruthless predator, was stretchered out of the cage, broken not just in body, but in image. Yet even on the stretcher, McGregor couldn't let go of his ego. Instead of humility, he screamed for revenge, declaring the fight wasn't over. He refused to admit Poirier had beaten him, despite the world literally watching his leg collapse. And in one of the most shocking moments of post-fight trash talk, he turned his rage toward Poirier's wife, claiming she had slid into his DMs with a thank you message. The humiliation wasn't enough. McGregor needed to drag others into the mud with him. But when the UFC started floating rumors of McGregor's comeback, the attention wasn't on his fight skills anymore. It was on his transformation, because the Conor McGregor of 2015, lean, sharp, quick as lightning, was gone. By 2024, a new version appeared, swollen with bulging muscles, a puffier face, a shiny, almost plastic-like skin, and a hairline retreating fast. To many experts, these weren't just changes, they were red flags. The whispers started instantly, steroids, and Joe Rogan, one of MMA's loudest voices, wasted no time throwing shade. On his podcast, he joked that McGregor melted the USADA trophy, a line that landed like a dagger. Fans laughed, but insiders knew Rogan wasn't just clowning around, he was calling out a deeper truth. Because soon after the shocking revelation dropped, USADA, the UFC's anti-doping agency, confirmed that McGregor hadn't been drug tested at all throughout 2022. 0 tests, a complete pass while every other fighter was under strict watch. Suddenly the theory wasn't just gossip, it looked like fact. And McGregor himself didn't exactly deny it. On social media, he all but admitted to using recovery aids during his time off, hinting it was all part of bouncing back from injury. That statement only fueled suspicions. Had the UFC quietly given their golden boy a free pass just to keep his name alive? Now McGregor is cornered by the system he once ruled. If he truly wants to come back, he has no choice but to re-enter the USADA testing pool, and this time, the eyes of the world are watching. The Notorious one isn't just fighting opponents anymore, he's fighting the truth behind his own transformation. If McGregor keeps chasing exhibition fights, names like Logan Paul or even Manny Pacquiao, where banned substances aren't strictly policed, he could still stack up hundreds of millions. No USADA tests, no restrictions, just pure money grabs dressed up as spectacle. But here's the real danger. Whispers suggest it's not just steroids. Other substances tied to his name have raised chilling questions about both his physical state and his mental stability. And then came 2023, the year his scandals hit new depths. At a yacht birthday party in Ibiza, McGregor was accused of verbally abusing a woman before allegedly striking her in the stomach and face. The victim reportedly jumped into the sea just to escape. It was the kind of headline that turned stomachs worldwide, painting McGregor not as a fighter, but as a man spiraling into something darker. With scandals piling high, many insiders believe the UFC no longer wants to be tied to him. That's why the highly publicized fight with Michael Chandler in 2024 has been delayed again and again. Fans were told it was scheduling issues, but rumors suggest the UFC is keeping him under contract only to block him from competing elsewhere, without truly bringing him back into the cage. And that leaves one burning question. Not when will McGregor return, but do we even want to see him again? Love him or hate him, no one can deny Conor McGregor carved out a path no fighter dared to walk. He built himself into more than just a competitor. He became a living myth. He fought in the cage, but he also won outside of it. In press conferences, in interviews, in viral headlines that shook the sports world. He turned every UFC bout into a global event, dragging MMA from a niche obsession into mainstream pop culture. And that didn't happen by accident. It wasn't luck. It was years of blood, sweat, obsession, and living every single day like a man destined to win. From a broke plumber in Dublin to the king of the octagon, McGregor became proof that no matter where you start, you can force the world to pay attention. He made millions look up to him until his arrogance, his ego, and his hunger for power drove them away. Success is beautiful, but failure? Failure is loud. And the loudest failure of all is when you fail yourself. McGregor wasn't destroyed by Aldo Diaz or Khabib. He was destroyed by his own illusion of invincibility, the belief that he was too big to fall, too powerful to face consequences. In the end, the fighter who beat the whole world may have been beaten by his own reflection. So now we ask, when a legend falls, should we mourn the loss, or should we wake up to the truth? Because McGregor's saga isn't just about one man, it's a warning for everyone chasing greatness. Talent can launch you to the stars, but only character keeps you from crashing back down. What do you think? Can Conor McGregor ever truly redeem himself, or is his empire gone for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more jaw-dropping stories.